So I just listened to King's Corner front to back, and I gotta say, I really like the record. It's definitely, what's interesting about the album is it's all of the source material is very old, and was written when I wasn't so great of an amazing lyricist or anything. So there's a rawness to the technical aspect, and there's childlike sort of quality to the songs, interspersed with mature production and structure and rewriting. It's a really weird, every album's different, and this one I never expected to make. Like, I wanted to work on all new stuff, but the muse just kind of had me going in this direction, so I rolled with it. It was like producing myself from a long time ago, and a couple versions of me coming together to create this album. And I like it. It's a personal record. It's kind of a side project. And it delves into, the way I look at the album, how it unfolds is the opening is the reflection of the time when this record was written, mostly. And so the opening is like a stream of consciousness. Like, I literally just sat there and rattled off whatever was going on in my head about the song, about the album after it was done. I was sitting in my father's attic. The cicadas were outside making noise, crickets, and I was just reflecting. And then I added some music to that, and I thought that album needed an introduction. I made one, and it was like me talking over guitar. It sounded goofy as hell. I was like, I'm not Chris Christopherson. Like, it's just not happening. So I abandoned ship on that. And so I made this intro, and then I'm just going to talk about how the album unfolds for me. And then it's like, boom, you're on the streets. I'm just like running, frantic, like hectic. Drugs, carnage, city, 90s, early 2000s, like mayhem, just like frantic, running from cops, doing drugs, just hectic. And so that's Where Is Jane, which is basically about a girl that I was really into, and thought that could save me from myself. And it did for like a week. And then guess what? Like, addiction and that destructive force like swallowed me up. And she hit the road, and good for her. Like, Jesus, you don't want to hang out with someone who's like, yeah, I'm just gonna do heroin now because like I feel like it's the time of my life where I need to explore this. I need to go to the brink. I need to just taste the darkness that this super powerful opiate brings. Oh, sure enough, it brought me to hell. Who saw that coming? But for that brief moment, like, there was that glimpse of childlike sort of hope. Like, oh, a relationship can save me. It's like, no, like, only I can save me. I have to take the steps to make changes, and then the universe can unfold with that. But I do need to take like a step in the right direction. And sometimes you got to go to hell with addiction. Sometimes you got to go to fucking hell, and that's what it is. Like, you can get to a point where there's nothing you can do to help someone, but just not help them, and they need to hit the ground, and it has to hurt. And so that song, Where Is Jane, was the first song on Folk and Roll Mofo, which was the demo CDR that most of these songs were on, that I was hawking at open mics awkwardly in Cambridge, Massachusetts, at Club Passim and on the subway and in art galleries, Out of the Blue Gallery. I did basically follow the same structure of Folk and Roll Mofo with King's Corner. I just added a couple songs that I dug up from that time, and then one new song that I wrote while I was in the process. So the album opens up with that frantic, I visually look at it as me like running through the streets from cops, and just Basketball Diaries sort of deal. And then it cuts to Game Over, which is a song about a woman who, gets strung out and dies of AIDS. And it was written about, inspired by the model, I think her name was. I should look that up, but I'd written it so long ago. Angelina Jolie plays her, and I saw this movie. It really hit home to me back in the day. And then, so that song was inspired by her, and it was also inspired by just the people I was running around with at the time. Just like people who were just burning out, like going up in flames. And again, it was like the illusion of, like, I really related to the lifestyle. Like, oh, like for a little while, like the hard life of, drugs and that sort of deal is attractive and cool and fun and feels good, but then that's temporary, and for people like me it flips. Some people it doesn't, like they can roll with that for their whole life and everything's cool, but for me and other folks it definitely flips, and you get to a place where there's no one around, like the party's over and it's just you and this fucking demon who's sticking into your bloodstream, or you're sucking down your throat, you're popping in a pill or whatever it is. Like, it's just you and that, and everything that mattered, everyone that mattered doesn't matter, and you know it, and everything tears you apart knowing that, and you just become a slave, and you die a horrific death. People die the most terrible deaths from addiction. It's just tragic, and you see it everywhere. And that person you just like stepped over in the Tenderloin or downtown or wherever, like in their own puke, just a fucking mess. Like, they didn't start out that way. Like, they were seemingly like a functioning member of society when they were, before they were consumed. So Game Over is about that, and it actually was raining, so I did record the rain, and we may have added a little embellishment of that. Thank the great Willie Samuels for that. And that is jingling at the end is my father's dog Mary, who was a little rattled. I'd be recording the songs up in the attic, and Mary would never come up there, but as soon as the thunder got going, Mary was like all about it. She was like, whoa, what is that? So she'd come up and hang out. So that song ends, and you're left with I Know How You Feel, which is a pretty short song. It's the first song I recorded of all these songs. It's one take. I did one take of it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's good. I added some piano and second guitar, and I think I added like 2 guitars and layered them. And that song's about like just depression. Just like, I know how you feel, it's like there's the sun and beauty and life happening all around, but you're in the darkness. And that was just like, I get it. And then comes Every Day, which is a little bit of a quirky, catchy sort of political-ish song from the time. Like, You Can't Get a Cocktail in Africa or Drink with Timothy McVeigh was a play on, at the time, you couldn't get AIDS medication in Africa. So that was like a thought on that. I don't know why anyone would want to drink with Timothy McVeigh, but it was culturally that was going on. He was being executed. And I actually changed Drink with Timothy McVeigh to It's a Needle for Timothy McVeigh. So in Folk and Roll Mofo era, it was Drink with Timothy McVeigh. in King's Corner, it's a needle for Timothy McVeigh. So we're moving, the common thread of needles is coming from addiction and heroin over to execution. So I never really thought about that, but that is in there. So it's an interesting connection. So that plays out, and there was a third verse to that song, and I literally haven't played this song in 15 years, and I remembered the first two verses from memory, and I couldn't remember the third verse at all. And I looked, I couldn't find a copy of the song anywhere, so I just wrote a new verse. Everybody's spinning next to a ball of fire in the sky, and everybody's living to the moment that you die. More just kind of simple lyrics, just the word, like, it's fucking crazy. We're on this ball, this earth, or maybe it's flat. I really don't know, man. I never been to space. And the sun, like this ball of fire we see and feel every day that our whole life depends on. And you just kind of like, yeah, this is the sun. Anyways, time to go to Starbucks. Like, hello, like, it's crazy. And, you live until you die. It's just like everybody's living till the moment that you die. You can watch through your window every day. You can watch life unfold out your window, or you can be a part of it. What's it gonna be? So that song ends. Oh, I did play the piano on there. Put a little piano hook in there, a little harmonica. Again, Willie Samuels did a great job with the mix on all these songs, because I did record this myself in my father's attic. It was not in a professional studio, but he did a really great job blending everything. Really grateful that he was able to take the project on. So then comes Goes to My Hometown, which is the last song on the LP before you flip to side B, and it's the middle of it on the CD. And that song just comes straight out of being back in Boston for a while and just being like invisible, feeling like a ghost, which is an interesting feeling because I used to get that when I was on tour. When I moved to California, I call it ghost status. It's when you don't know anybody and you just walk through society unknown and invisible. I think there's a book, The Stranger, which you're like the stranger, or like people are strange by the doors. No one wants to know you. I'm not saying that happened in Boston, but I did have a glimpse of that ghost status because I had been gone for a long time. People I used to hang out with are gone. People are older. People are raising kids. People are not around. Gentrification, things are changing. Like, there's purebred dogs on my street now. Like, growing up, there was this, you just let your mutt out. Just let your dog out. He was a mutt. You got him at the pound. Just runs around. And now, like, it's just like fancy pants people, like, moving in from Connecticut. It's fucking strange. And so that song's like Goes to My Hometown. The dead tell a tale in my hometown. They're everywhere, but there's no one around. Like, yeah, the ghosts are everywhere, but there's no one there. And that's actually, there is a line that struck, me. Michael Patrick McDonald is an author from South Boston. He wrote a book called All Souls and another book called Easter Rising. All Souls is a classic Boston book. It's, if you grew up in Boston in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, like, you need to read that book. Incredible. And in the end of the book, he mentioned something about ghosts. There's a lot of ghosts in this town because he's in Southie, and everyone he knows is gone, and there's all these new people there, but the ghosts remain. And I don't know how he wrote it, or I can't quote it, but that's how I remember that. And that always stuck with me. I read that like 20 years ago, and that always stuck with me. And so I experienced that sort of feeling. I guess that's, if I had to like track down where that line comes, the dead tell a tale in my hometown, they're everywhere, no one's around. And everywhere I heard the sound of vanishing and falling out. Like, like everywhere things are fading away. New is coming in and old is going out. A new thing is happening. The revolving is occurring. And I'm on the outside of that. And, I see the ghosts. And I am a ghost. And then the second verse is the tide rises and rolls out to sea. I'm walking down Tinian Beach. That's where I used to swim as a kid. It's also where organized crime figures buried bodies in the 80s. So I'm walking down Tinian Beach. Now I go down there and take a walk around Castle Island, and I just did a lot of walking by myself. Kind of sad. So I'm walking down Tinian Beach. I'm a stranger now. It's sad to see, but it was bound to happen eventually. And running fast, and I'm looking out at the ghost in my hometown. That's me looking out and seeing like the old town. The old town's the ghost. And I'm running now. No, I'm not walking. And then the last verse is I'm driving down Old 93. I'll take the Mass Pike westernly. And everywhere they're whispering in the fallen leaves when they hit the street. And the Old 93 is the main highway that runs from the South Shore up through Boston and the North Shore, or northern Massachusetts. And the Mass Pike is the main road that stretches all through Massachusetts and goes west. And seeing the ghosts in the leaves, fallen leaves blowing around, the memories just hitting the street. And I'm driving fast, and I'm looking out at the ghosts of my hometown. And the ghosts are all around. And that's a new song. I wrote that recently. I do see the maturity of the lyrics personally in that song over the other songs, some of which I had to totally strip down and rewrite because they were like pretty goofy. So goes to my hometown, like, yeah, just a raw live recorded that at the end of the process, wrote it at the end of the process. It was like, this song has to go in there. This record needs like some new flavor. And shot a video with it with Jason Stone. We just went around Dorchester and shot fucking black and white video on our cameras, and I cut it up and made a little music video out of it. So that's the end of side A, or it's just the end of that song. So then the next side opens up with Mass Ave's Story, which I don't even remember. This is a song that was totally rewritten. The only thing that remains is like the melody. The rest was just scrapped because it was just goofy. I didn't like it, and there was no way I could record it and put it out now. So it's like, it was a drug song back in the day. It was like a poor me, I'm on drugs, and then mixed with some weird political shit. It was like a bad leftover crack song. So I was just like, no. I'm like, I can't. If I had put it out, back in the day, fine. But as now, I'm like, I just wasn't. So I was able to rewrite that one, and I kind of made it about, it was like me talking to me from that time, but also me seeing myself in the people of Methadone Mile, which, for those who don't know, is a neighborhood in Boston that used to be still is the meatpacking neighborhood, but it's also home to all of the junkies, and it's like just packs of junkies roaming, lost, forgotten, destroyed. Boston City Hospital is there. There's a lot of programs out of there that operate, and there's a hotel. It's like, don't stay in that hotel. You will be kind of sketched out because it's a sketchy area. It's just like the downtown LA or the Tenderloin. It's where Boston is now just shuffling everyone, where it used to be the combat zone. Now it's out of control. It's just like rampant opioid addiction, heroin, death, destruction, ODs, prostitution. The whole thing is just something out of Night of the Living Dead down there. It's super sad and tragic. And I'd always drive through there on my way to anywhere in Boston from Dorchester. And so, like, that song is kind of like me talking to me from my own drug era, but also seeing myself and those folks and where my life could have gone. And what was interesting is I wanted to get some sounds and sirens, so I drove down there And I was just recording stuff. And at the end of my drive, I wasn't sure I got anything. And there was a panhandler. It looked like he grew up in Southie or something. And he's at the corner of Columbia Road and Mass Ave, which is essentially the beginning of Mass Ave, the beginning of Methadone Mile. And he said, "Excuse me, sir, can you help me out, boss?" You know, just asking for money. And I had the camera going, so I recorded that. I didn't record him, I just recorded the audio. And I thought that was a very suitable introduction to the song. You can hardly understand them, but that's kind of how junkies talk. You can't really understand them. They're just so swallowed up. They're just like, it's like a whiny, nasally drawl. It's like the death rattle. And so I recorded that, and then I don't even know how that lyric, if I wrote the lyric before and then I saw him, which would be more mystical, but I think I probably saw him and then wrote the lyric on the corner of Columbia Road, which is another road that runs through Dorchester. So that's Mass Ave's story. Then goes into Living in the Red, which is one of my hits. Eric McAuliffe always wants to hear that. A couple other folks always like that song. That one remains pretty much untouched until it gets to the bridge middle part, which there used to be this rap where I would rap, which I don't like. I tried to rewrite it, but poems are like that game Jenga. You can't really replace a part without the whole thing falling apart. I just had to knock it all down and build it back up. So there's a new poem in there. And I awoke in a dream and the people were burning. Their faces were all made of fire. They were twisting and turning and desperately yearning, and the flames fought ire with ire. And they grew higher and higher and higher and higher, and they grew all the way to the sun. And oh, what a moment for all who behold it. In an instant everything it was one. And all who behold it could never hold it. In an instant the dream it was done. And for me, that poem is reflecting on the anger that is so prevalent in society now. Everyone is so mad and justified and righteous and indignant and rageful, and there's unity in that rage, and we can unite in the fire and torment of that hell, and we can rise and grow all the way to the sun with this rage and with our twisted faces and our madness. And you can grow higher and higher and higher, and you get all the way to the sun, and in a moment I'll behold it. It's just self-destructs. There's nowhere else to go. And the fire just burns you up. And that's my modern day poem for that song. Whether or not you agree, it's up to you, not me. So that was Living in the Red, and I went all out with orchestration on that. Added some strings and cello and a whole bunch of backup vocals and electric guitars, because I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do whatever I want on this record. Just whatever I want. I want to start screwing around with, and Willie sent me a picture, and he was like, well, this is the most tracks I've ever seen on a Brian McPherson song. And it was his whole board he had lit up and he was mixing. It's there's 30 tracks on that tune. I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun, and I'm all about no limits and boundaries with creativity now. I just want to go where I want to go. So that was Living in the Red. Okay, we're coming up on a 25 mile an hour speed limit. We're in a little ghost town. I'm gonna pause and check my map. All right, 130 miles I turn, so we're good. Gift shop, RV park, Goldfield. We're cruising through this little town. It's not even a ghost town. It's a community. It's active. There's people here. There might have been gold here at one time. There's a Texaco. I'm gonna stop because I want some lunch. I have some sardines. I'm all about omega-3s and sardines and fish and salmon now. So I got some sardines. I'm gonna buy some baked potato chips and some sort of beverage. Have me some lunch. at the Chevron in 30 miles. So that's convenient because I want to finish talking about this record. So the next song, after Living in the Red, is called Jumper / 9/11. And you can probably deduce that it is about 9/11. And it's about someone who was faced with the horrific decision or accident of what the hell to do when you're in that horrible situation where you're on like the 102nd floor of a towering inferno. What do you do? It was inspired by, there's a documentary called The Falling Man, where they tried to retrace the identity of this poor soul who was falling to his death. They have a photograph of it. It's a famous photograph. All right, there's cops up here, so I'm putting my phone down. Taking it easy through Goldfield. What up, Goldfield? I'd get out and take pictures, but who has time for that? I got a 7-hour drive and a gig to get to. I really wish I could get out and take photographs of everything, but I can't. So, like I was saying, Jumper is about someone who had to jump. And some folks had to jump. Like, there's a video of it, like, holding hands, just being like, because what are you going to do? Burn to death? In that fucking nightmare? Or jump and get at least a breath of fresh air and a few moments to reflect? And, like, there was a famous photograph of that. I was working at the Boston Globe. I was not a reporter. I was counting returned newspapers. It was just, oh my God, just a fucking horrible job for someone like me. But I was like strung out at the time, so I feel bad for them for hiring me. And I thank them, but I never really gave a good performance. So I went to work the day after 9/11, and that was on the front page of a lot of the newspapers, but it was too honest and true. So they basically banned that photograph, and no one ever saw it again. And they totally moved the narrative from that photograph to like Osama bin Laden or something. And that photo made an impact. It was the most true thing of that whole situation. And then I watched The Falling Man, and I had originally, the song was another one I don't really remember the name of, but it was like a poor me kind of song, which was about 9/11, poorly done. I never liked it. Even at the time, I was like, I don't know how I feel about the song. So I rewrote it. And that's delicate ground to cover. Like, a lot of lives were lost, and that's a very sensitive area. And to put myself into the shoes of those people is sacred ground. And I wanted to do it justice, and I think I did. I think I did it respectfully, and I think I was able to, at least for me, put myself in their shoes for such a terrible. And you got to give these people props for just, in their last moments, they tapped into their own liberty and their freedom, and they made a decision under those circumstances, and they exercised free will and freedom for a better moment in time. And they knew the consequences, but what are you going to do? Other people tried to climb down. You got the courage to climb down a skyscraper. Some of them almost made it. You watch them, they're rooting for them, and then they slip, and then that's it. It's just a fucking nightmare. Everything changed after that day. The last song is See Me Fall. You know, kind of ties in Jumper into See Me Fall. But the play there is not jumping, it's the falling of addiction. And that era, like this whole record is like a photo book of that time in my life. And it's taken from actual material from then and then reflective material from then. But this song remains pretty much untouched. And it's a spoken word tune, and kind of feel a little goofy at times, but I really like it. And that's a Joe Bennett song. My friend Joe Bennett always asks to hear that one. So he was part of the inspiration to put it together, actually, because he's always asking to hear that song. He requested it on a Kickstarter campaign from 2012. I never recorded it for him. And so I decided, okay, I will just record this song for Joe. And even though the Kickstarter campaign was songs not on Folk and Roll Mofo, so he wrote in his request, but I made it eventually. And I recorded that, and I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. Let me try the rest. And I thought I'd be done in a week. It took 6, and then it took 3 months to get it all finished, and then it took 6 months to get it out, so on and so forth. But that song is like walking off into the sunset, so to speak. The beginning is this reflective, chaotic, and then it goes through these tales of that era. And what was going on at the time. And at the time, I thought I had walked off into the sunset, and I thought open mics and writing songs could save me, and that couldn't save me either. I spun out again, but then I was eventually able to get sober, and then I stayed sober, and the rest is history, so to speak. And but this song is that. It's like a new day, and anything is possible. Like if you're at your lowest, if you don't see any way out, it's just darkness. Like you just have to take one step in the direction of the light. There's a good analogy I heard someone say, when you're in a room of darkness, all you got to do is crack the blind just a little bit, and that little bit of light can illuminate the whole room, and then you can open it the rest of the way. And so that was that. And I actually thanked a bunch of people, bands that I've done shows with, friends that I met, little venues that I would play. So I threw in all those shout outs because it's fun. Give some people some shout outs, man. We're all in this thing together. And I wanted people to get a little idea of the culture that I come from, like the punk rock and the folk and all that. So it was cool to give shout outs to peeps. And then the song ends, and the record ends. There's a brief pause, and then Chihuahua begins. Some people are a little confused about this Chihuahua track. Well, Chihuahua was the last song on Folk and Roll Mofo. It remains untouched. It's me and my family and some friends playing this song with my now deceased Chihuahua Peanut, because you could howl and Peanut would howl. He would sing, and you could sing with the music and he would sing back. So it would just be like, oh, and he'd be like, oh, and he'd go crazy. It was awesome and hilarious. So I recorded him doing that, and then recorded over that, and we got, it was this whole kind of magical moment, for me at least. Whether or not that translates to you, the listener, I don't know. But for me, it was just a special way to end the record and to end that era. And I listen to that now, and it makes me smile. So hopefully the journey that this record takes you on, at least you might be able to leave with a little bit of a smile and a little bit of light coming in through the darkness, if that's where you're at. Because Chihuahuas howling are just amazing. Come on. And so the record ends, and that is the story as I see it.